The end of the third season of Chapter 5 is just days away, and it won't be long before we face an Avengers-level threat, the Wanderer. The final round is about to begin, and unlike the Defenders of Earth, we don't have a Doctor Strange to calculate every possible scenario. So now I will recount all the key events of the third season. Where did it all begin, and where will it lead to in the next season? Where did the Raiders come from? What was Megalo Don's plan? Why were Jones and Hope collecting gems? And most importantly, who is Wanderer? In the meantime, put your Raider like and enter my author code FillyFishy in the item store. So let's get started. To understand where it all started, we have to go to the end of the second season of the 5th chapter, when Zeus decided to get rid of all mortals on the island. For this purpose, he gradually charged a huge statue on Mount Olympus. And not just for nothing, but to reactivate the Pandora's box. Apparently, the Lord of Lightning knew perfectly well that inside this box, there was a power worse than the one that broke out on the island the first time. And when he did, all the gods disappeared, and for good reason. The Olympians themselves knew they had no chance against this new threat. Then it seemed to us that the mystical box was destroyed, and its main gem sped southward, toward the sea. It turned out that the power of the Pandora's box was hiding a huge raiding ship Leviathan, which was heading straight for the island along with a terrible sandstorm. But then we did not know what mysterious red glow was shining from the very center of the storm. For days, the entire community watched as someone or something sent us signals in Morse code. And by the start of Season 3, a mysterious something was approaching the island. This something was a giant ship in the shape of a shark, and not just any ship, but a ship full of raiders and their cars. On May 24th, a sandstorm struck the island, and with it, Leviathan himself came ashore. The raiders were led by a rather creepy fellow. Later, the closet-sized giant decided to get acquainted with the loopers himself, but he did it in a very original way, capturing a radio tower. Many people while traveling in their car stumbled upon the mystery station. The raiders had turned it into a way of terrorizing the islanders. Every 2 weeks, Megalo Don would come out with a new edition of The Voice of the Wasteland to tell us how he wanted to destroy the raiders this time. To be fair, this guy's got a lot of charisma. At least his constant poom in the middle of the conversation rated everything at all.
When my Leviathan is refueled with nitro, it will tear through this island with its teeth. It will blacken the sky, rend the beaches in two, and devour your pathetic little cities. And then, once everything of value has been plundered, consumed, or merely destroyed, then I will seek new horizons to burn.
In short, even if Megalo Don's intellect doesn't shine, but his monologues were interesting to listen to. So I hope that in the future we will get more such colorful characters. But raiders are far not the only thing that Leviathan brought. Even in the trailer for the third season, many people asked the question, what was Agent Chaos doing on the ship? The same Agent Chaos who was thrown overboard when the ship docked on the island. If you dig a little deeper, you can find a very interesting detail. On Brutal Base, you can find a board with a very mysterious formula. And no matter what anyone says, but the raiders could hardly have developed such a complex chemical compound. And if you look closely, the board shows the formula for nitro. The whole third season was tied to this orange liquid, so if you're looking for someone to thank, or vice versa, all questions to Agent Chaos. The raiders so appreciated the invention of the former Midas agent that they began to fuel cars, guns, and even themselves with it. In any case, nitro literally became liquid gold, which was hunted by raiders and islanders alike. They even built a huge nitro tower to produce it. It was on Red Line Rig that all the nitro for raiders was produced, and this moment I advise you to remember, we will come back to it again. And it would seem everything is cool. Madness, chaos, cool cars, except for the fact that a crazy masked man wants to divide the island into two halves. You can live quite comfortably. But Megalo Don wasn't the main threat. Back at the end of Season 2, Oracle mentioned a mysterious wanderer we'd encounter in the future. At first, we thought Megalo Don was the wanderer, until we discovered a ton of weird details. First, on the loading screen you could notice a strange man in a cloak, and then on the island you could come across graffiti with his image. But that's not all. In the middle of the season, the loopers started to notice a strange figure in a cloak who seemed to be looking for something on the island, and if you approached him, he immediately disappeared. And to be honest, I still don't understand why the Wanderer chose these particular places. Perhaps it will remain a mystery forever, or his travels on the island will be told in the next season. But the main question for the community was, who is hiding under his cloak? Now it's clear that it's Dr. Doom, but back then, there were different theories among the loopers. In any case, it was immediately clear to us that the raiders and their leader, Megalo Don, were far from being the main bad guys. They are just needed to play the role of a crowd before the appearance of a really dangerous creature. But Jones and Hope didn't know what kind of trouble they'd be facing. And speaking of those two, after defeating the gods and making Pandora's box disappear, small gems were scattered all over the island. Somewhere, Hope managed to find a mysterious board where just the right amount of these orange pebbles could be inserted. So throughout the season, we hunted for Pandora's gems to unravel the secret of the board. And surprisingly, it was easy. But if we were just hunting for artifacts, it would be too boring, so we needed something to complicate the task. With every gem we collected, Hope began to hear voices in her head. Later, it turned out those voices belonged to Pandora's box. The thing was actually a living thing, and Hope was able to communicate with it. As the Oracle later explained to us, the Pandora's box is trying to take over Hope's mind. But why? I think this moment will be revealed to us only in the next season, but here is another interesting thing. I have a theory that Pandora's box is not as simple as it seems, and it can fulfill wishes. Here, though, the mystical box promises hope, peace, harmony, and quiet on the island. In fact, Pandora's box offers to rewrite her the course of history for the entire 5th chapter, so that these events never happen. While Jones and Hope were searching for the gems, they failed to notice the danger that was right under their noses: Leviathan.
Fate is sealed, Wastelanders. Enjoy your unhappy ending.
Yes, all this time the raiders did not sleep, but prepared for a victorious march across the island. Starting from the first day, Megalo Don planned to refuel Leviathan to eventually split the map in two. To accomplish this, the raiders' chief engineer, the machinist, built a nitro conduit that led nitro directly to the ship. The loopers had few trumps, except for the power of the gems that Jones and Hope were after. But then our island defense team had an unexpected ally, Magneto. He's the one who will help the loopers at the beginning of next season. And throughout the third season, he would set up rift beacons to move the mutant army into null reality. Either way, it's only an emergency, and an army of other heroes are on their way. The final event showed that the raiders were just flowers before the real threat, and their Leviathan turned out to be a scarecrow at all, because the nitro wire was successfully destroyed. To be more precise, it was hacked and destroyed. Those who watched the event closely, I think, realized that the timer above the main pipe began to lag, and then instead of it appeared the logo of Dr. Doom. Apparently, Doom betrayed Megalo Don and ruined all his plans, but in reality, the Wanderer simply overloaded the nitro pipeline, which eventually caused an explosion and a chain reaction that got to Redline Rig. To be honest, we haven't seen such a spectacular villainous appearance in a long time. And remember when I asked you to remember the moment with the nitro and the Redline Rig? Well, as it turns out, the mystical box was right underneath them the whole time. The raiders, perhaps unknowingly, were using it to create nitro. Now, Dr. Doom has gained complete control over the power of Pandora's box, most likely the very power our Hope was supposed to have. And he did it by rewriting the constellations in Pandora's gems. But how he did it, history doesn't tell us. In any case, it will not end well, and in the near future we will have to deal with the consequences of this mess, because then the last season of the 5th chapter will start. And in general, the 3rd season of the 5th chapter was on a decent level, and the plot so generally pleased. Yes, it became much more complicated, especially if you compare it with the similarity of the plot in the last chapter. But this makes it even more interesting to follow the events on the island, because you have to literally dig to the truth. Personally, I already understand that the happy denouement of the 5th chapter will not be, but on August 16th we will have to take back the zero reality by our own efforts. And how it will end for the whole island is still unknown. I do have something to discuss, but we'll save that for later. So don't miss out on all the fun stuff, click on the bell to stay up to date and subscribe. By all means, don't forget to put your fishy like and enter my FillyFishy creator code in the item store. Well, I'm off, see you all later.